it's Dr. Sophia Satterwhite, founder and CEO of She Heals the World. I'm so happy that you are tuning in to today's episode to hear the top lifestyle and business tips from women entrepreneurs all around the globe. If you found this show helpful, be sure to share it with a friend. That's how our community grows. Today's guest is coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome to the She Heals the World talk show. So today I am excited to have the celebrity Noel Elie joining us. She is an award-winning actress. She has done so many amazing things. She's been seen in NBC's Shades of Blue, CBS Blue Bloods, I mean the whole bit, Yoga Journal, Self Magazine, and she also owns a PR company that focuses on launching. And Noel's going to share some of her strategies with us and for you today. Noel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So excited to have you. So, you are such a rock star. You've done so many things. How did you just kind of get started with your PR company and with becoming an actress? I'm sure it's like one story of progression, but I'd love for the audience to just hear a little bit more about your background.
Sure. Well, I grew up, my parents were musicians and singers. And so I grew up sort of in the arts, and around 12 years old, I started modeling. And I decided in high school that I was going to move to New York City for modeling. And so 2 days after I graduated high school, I packed up and moved to New York and knew no one at 18. And from there, I began modeling and signed with some big agencies and worked New York Fashion Week. And then I randomly took an acting class and realized acting was my passion. And so then from there, I really honed in on my craft and decided acting would be my focus. And so I had kind of stopped modeling. It became like an unhealthy thing for me. But one of the members at IMG, Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, this was back when it was at Bryant Park and it was very magical. They said, well, Noel, why don't you get involved in the production of Fashion Week? You can help us produce events and put on Fashion Week. And so that's what I did. And I realized I had this skill set. And so from there, I attracted clients like Gabrielle Bernstein and Chris Carr and Deepack Chopra. And I launched my production company. And I realized just because I was an artist, I didn't have to be a struggling artist. And I could, make a lucrative living utilizing my skill set while still auditioning and while still working on sets of, big production TV shows and films. And then from there, it's sort of from a production company, it morphed into so much more because I started also attracting the likes of influencers and other, celebrities and motivational speakers. And I started really just paying attention to what each client was doing and then offering ways to help them grow. And so I just kind of realized, okay. So then it morphed into social media growth and consulting. And then I'll never forget it. I was at dinner at a place called Peace Food Cafe with a friend and client of mine. And she was saying how she was struggling in the PR world. And I'm a natural sort of influential connector. Like I love networking and connecting people to each other. And so I said, oh, well, you want to get in the New York Times? Let me introduce you to this editor. Or like, oh, you want to be on The View? Let me introduce you to this producer. And I just did it out of the goodness of my heart. And at the end of the dinner, she said, Noel, I want you to know you did more for me in this 1 hour dinner date than my publicist has done in 6 months. And I pay my publicist a lot of money. So then I was like, oh, okay. I get, yep. All right, there we go. And so that's kind of, I believe that all roads lead to Rome, but it's like when you're left these sort of breadcrumbs, it's like what you choose to do with the breadcrumbs.
That story is so beautiful, and it's taken you in many different directions, but there has been that through line, like you said, of like networking and community and connection. And I'm wondering, as you started to create a business from that is thriving. What hurdles did you experience once you realized that you were really good at this and you also have to support yourself from this?
Totally. That's a great question. I mean, the hurdles, look, I've been dealing with hurdles my whole life. So I'm a great hurdle jumper, Um, but, because when I moved to New York, I moved with $800 to my name and that paid my first month's rent and that was
Mhm.
it. And so I survived off of eating. I would go to the deli, get, one of those big turkey sandwiches, and they put so much meat on it. I'm from the South, so I wasn't used to like these big deli sandwiches. And I would ration the meat to last me for a week. You know what I mean? So like I know what the struggle is like, and the struggle is real. But in terms of, within my business, it's like, I don't necessarily think I discovered this right when I started. It's been a more recent thing, which is just because you're skilled at something, that doesn't necessarily mean it's your passion or your purpose. And so what tends to happen, I've found, whether it's with clients or friends or whoever, or myself included, oftentimes I'm a Sagittarius. And so I don't know if you believe in astrology, but Sages are known for having restless leg syndrome. And that's very true for me because it's partially why I'm an actor, which is I do something, I want to become the expert at it. Like I want to become the best and I'll do what it takes to research and learn about it. And then I get bored. So then I move to something else and then I get bored and then I move to something else. And so,
Yeah.
um, I guess the struggle with my business as of late has just been really making sure it's in alignment with my highest truth and my highest purpose of why I'm here. And if it doesn't feel in alignment, really getting clear on what I need to do. And so maybe that is I'm not as hands-on and I'm giving it to my associates, right? Or just being mindful of how I spend my time. But in terms of the beginning, the hurdles were trusting that I was enough. Um, and I have a very like stick to itiveness about me where if I don't know how to do something, I'll figure it out. And Google has been my best friend. I mean, I remember when Gabby hired me, she was like, I want you to produce my events. Well, I had produced Fashion Week shows, but I'd never produced a 300 person event. So what did I do? I went home and Googled how to be an event planner, like I truly, and then it went off without a hitch. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I guess I can do this, but the hurdles really come from limiting beliefs, in my opinion.
I want to ask you, what your greatest win has been, but I think that Gabby Bernstein event was a big one. Do
Well,
you have another?
oh, I have so many. I mean, I started out producing events for Gabby at $15 an hour and then became her director of operations and, producing book tours for Deepak Chopra and Kimberly Snyder and a lot of helping authors become New York Times bestselling authors. But in terms of my greatest win, honestly, it's actually, I produced a nonprofit fundraiser. My mom passed away from cancer in 2016. And when she got diagnosed, the treatment she needed wasn't covered by insurance. So I had to raise $100,000 pretty quickly to keep her alive. And that would be my greatest win. The fact that I was able to, no matter how many doors would slam shut in my face, or, I had to learn to ask for help. And that was something that I didn't normally do. And I got told no a lot. I had people say, why should I help you when, my father was sick and no one helped him? Like I had some interesting struggles there, but the fact that it all came together and it was part of keeping my mom alive for those few extra years, like that nothing will ever top that.
That is so beautiful, Noelle. And I'm sure your mother is so proud of you today,
Yeah.
especially the work that you're doing, helping others, inspiring others, empowering others, and really supporting them in bringing their message to the world. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
I'd love for us to discuss your launch methodology. You are I would say world renowned. I don't know, but I will say from the success that you've had, I can assume that you are world renowned with this stuff. And there are a lot of women listening today who have something big that is ready to be birthed, whether it's their next book or their next course or their next coaching program or whatever. And to have someone like you on the show to just share your expertise with this, I think is 100% golden. So I would love to hear from you some of the high level tips that you have essentially about how to launch anything successfully the first time around. What can you share with us about that?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I mean, you're just making me feel really good today. But I think it comes down to the person. So for me, I can sometimes fall into perfectionism. And so that perfectionism will sometimes stunt me from doing the thing. Right. And so I think it kind of depends on who you are, really getting clear on what your highest values are and how your launch falls in alignment with that. I always say to any client, first and foremost, so if they come to me and they say, I want to be a New York Times bestseller, I want to be on Good Morning America, I want to be on Oprah, whatever it is, I'm like, that's all well and good. I hear you. And let's focus on your message. Let's focus on your purpose. Let's focus on the people you're going to help versus these accolades. Because even with social media growth and all of that, it's at the end of the day, it's vanity metrics. And so often in life, I think we seek validation from these outside sources. And then when you actually get the thing, it doesn't often feel like you thought it would because you're seeking on the outside versus on the inside. So I think first and foremost, getting really clear on what your highest values are, what your message is, and how that can genuinely impact people around the world. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, it's important to be strategic. So if you are a perfectionist like myself, and you're going to allow other factors to maybe stop you from putting your work out into the world, sometimes it's just actually launching, right? So sometimes it's forgetting the plan, forgetting the KPIs, like what you want to reach and the timeline. Sometimes it's actually just putting yourself out there and kind of seeing what happens and growing from that. So an example is I'm creating a documentary right now around I'm dealing with some health issues, Lyme disease, co-infections, mold toxicity, fibroid tumors. And I'm creating a documentary for it. And I was talking to my best friend and I was kind of listing the reasons why maybe I should wait or why maybe I should not put it out right now. And she just said, like, what if you don't worry about any of it and you just put it out as an experiment? What's the worst that could happen? And so for me, that's the thing that like propels me to go forward. So that's just for me. But for other clients, it's getting clear on your message, being strategic, and really getting clear on having a timeline. I've had clients come to me where they have a book launching in 2 weeks. It drives me nuts. Like, we should have been working on this 3-6 months in advance. So if you have the time, I definitely recommend getting clear and strategic around a campaign, a marketing campaign, because, launching anything is essentially like a second job. Especially if it's a book, you're giving birth to a book baby. It's literally, a full-time job. So if you can get a timeline in place and start asking around, asking advice, reaching out to fellow authors that you admire and seeing if they'll let you get on the phone with them for 10 minutes and literally just picking their brain, finding mentors, not being afraid to ask for help. One of my clients literally had no problem at any given moment that she was writing or, publishing a book, and she produced many, literally reaching out to everyone she knew saying, can you promote it on this day at this time? And she got, but she also got a lot of yeses, and those yeses really helped add up to her success. And so, not being afraid to ask for help, not being afraid to learn from others, and really admitting if you don't know the thing. I was with someone the other day and they asked me a question and I went to answer and then they answered the question. I didn't get annoyed, but I just thought, like, oh, that's precious. Like, we ask a question because we genuinely want to know, but then when we think we know the answer, well, do you know the answer actually?
Right.
So
Right.
really admitting if this is not in your skill set yet, really be an open vessel to just learn. And then I mean also like if you have money to hire a publicist, whether it's me or someone else, there's so many different routes of publicity you can take. And also utilizing social media. Social media is king right now. You don't have to have it to be successful. There are many friends and clients of mine that do not have social media, but there are so many people I know making six figures off of social media alone.
Mm.
Yeah, and I also want to be clear, you don't have to have tens of thousands of followers. I mean, you literally could have 6,000 followers, but if they're the right 6,000 followers, I mean, even 2,000, you can definitely reap the reward from it if you can cultivate those relationships.
Noel, I'd love to know. So, as someone who is a publicist, when someone comes to you for your support with launching, and whether they do have a book and they want to become a New York Times bestseller, what are the things that tell you that they are ready versus the things that tell you, I don't know if you're quite ready for me yet?
Sure. I mean, I always am very, very transparent. So, if they're not ready, I'm very, very clear on that. But there's several things to pay attention to. So, if someone came to me and they had no social media following, no previous publicity record, meaning they haven't been in any sort of media outlets whatsoever, they don't have a website. Those factors alone are telling me that unless they have hundreds of thousands of dollars and 6 months to a year prior to their book launching,
Mm.
it's going to be really hard for them to reach that status. However, I mean, we have I have a client, her name's Shelly Paxton, and she had been the CMO of Harley Davidson, so she had that going for her. I think maybe she'd been in one outlet prior, and she had a website and she had a book deal. But other than that, she didn't have anything. And we really helped her reach over 2 million impressions, being featured as like the number one book in Forbes and being in USA Today and Thrive Global and, all these media outlets. So we did that in the course of 10 months. And so
Mm.
that was a really big win, right? But she also knew she needed to put in the work, and we had to create from literally the ground up a media reel for her. And she was really game at, if I said to her, listen, we really need to tweak your wardrobe, or we need to tweak, your message, or whatever it was, she was really open to learning and growing and doing what she needed to do so that her book would continue to be a success. And that was all during the pandemic too.
Mm.
So it's possible, but generally, if you have a decent social media following, if you have a website that's amazing, and you have professional photos, and when you're doing these interviews, do you have a microphone? Do you have lights? Do you have
Mm.
a home studio? Like, can you set that all of that up? It's totally possible to be super successful without all of that, but it only helps you look even more pro.
Got it. Got it. So, for those women who are fairly new, if you could tell them or give them one thing that they should be focusing on right now so that when they are ready for someone like you, they make your life easier, what would that one thing be?
Oh, wow. I think getting really clear on what your messaging is and
Mm.
and why it is what it is. So if you come to me knowing who you are, but not pretending to know what you don't know, like just
Mm.
very raw and honest, you can be molded and shaped into this like blossoming, professional flower. Uh,
Mm.
uh, but generally, I'm not keen on taking on clients when they ask your opinion, but then don't want to take it. And,
Mm.
here, if I were to send you, let's say, a whole setup of what you could order off of Amazon so that, when these interviews come, you're set up and ready, but you don't do it. or I've sent you an onboarding sheet with 30 questions and you fill out 10. Like, but we did have I have a client who came on board who literally, he's an athlete and had nothing else. He did not have a website. He wasn't even sure of his messaging. He wrote a book though, and the book is lovely. But he was so adaptable. He was adaptable to everything. I helped him get a team together so that he could create an email list and the website and a funnel for marketing. So even if you've created a website on your own, like getting a one-pager, even have a one-pager saying who you are, what you do, and why you're bomb at it, right? But even if you don't have those things, if you have the time to invest and the money to invest, we can create all of that for you. You just have to be willing to kind of go with the flow and trust the process.
I hear coachability in there. I hear you have to be coachable if you're going to work with a publicist.
Yes. And look, you don't have to be, but then you might not get as much bang for your buck, because I always say, like, I can advise you, I can take the horse to water, but I can't force the horse to drink. So, it's up to you if you want to drink the Kool-Aid,
Right. Right. So helpful, Noel. There's one question that could be looming for folks that I want to just drop in your lap to help people understand and give this conversation context. And it really is so simple. And that question is, what is a publicist and what does a publicist do? And I only ask that because these are terminologies that sometimes brand new entrepreneurs have never even thought of and are not even familiar with. So whether someone is working with you or whether someone is working with another publicist or considering hiring one, what should they expect from that person?
Ooh, that's kind of a loaded question because it kind of depends on what capacity you're hiring a publicist for. So generally, I feel like within my company, we wear a lot of hats. So our job is to generate and manage publicity for you or your brand or, whoever it is, or whether it's for a product, a book launch, a film. It's really to create buzz around you and why you are as fabulous as you are. But then it's also, we kind of manage them as well. So molding them and coaching them. Sometimes clients need media training. So we literally will go back and forth and create mock-up interviews for you to get comfortable in front of the camera. If you're coming in already comfortable, then we're just maybe tweaking a little bit. But it's also to, essentially we want to protect your image, right? Or maintain your image. From there, really helping you get on those, depending on where you are in the game. If you're just brand new, maybe we'll start with getting you on podcast, and then getting on the bigger podcast and then the bigger podcast and getting you on online outlets. And then from there, working on TV and local newspaper, local radio. And then from there, national magazines and television shows. And so generally there's almost like a tier you want to kind of follow. Is it possible to have very little media recognition and then get on Good Morning America? Sure. But generally I don't like to set my client, I want to set them up for success. And I want to be realistic of, yes, that could happen. I could also book a role next week that takes me to, Israel to be in the next Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? $20. Like that's possible, yes. But let's also just continue to set realistic sights,
Mm-hmm. Super helpful, Noel. This has been such a pleasure having you on the show. Now that you are where you are, you've achieved the success that you have. If you could look back and give your 10-year younger self any piece of advice, what would it be?
I love that question. It just gets better. This is not it. You will go above and beyond your wildest imaginations. And just because sometimes you're treated like the help doesn't define you. And probably the biggest thing is use your voice, honey. don't be afraid to use that voice. It's powerful and it's going to change many, many lives.
Use your voice.
Yeah.
How can our audience find and support you?
Well, they can go to Instagram. That's the best place to keep in touch. It's at Noel_Elie, and that's NOEL_ELIE. And then I'm currently, my web designers are redoing both my websites. So I have noelelie.com. I also have noelellieproductions.com. The production one should be done in the next week or two, which I'm excited. And then the Noel Elie one will be a couple weeks after that. But yeah, just honestly, all the things, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it's all Noel_Elie.
Noel, this has been such a pleasure having you share your brilliance. Thank you for coming on the show, and I can't wait to have you back.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
Well, there you have it. Thanks for listening to the She Heals the World talk show with Dr. S.
To learn more about how to live your life by design, grab a freebie at shehealstheworld.com/freebie.